Okay, I just started recording. Anything else, Rajang, do I need to take care before I do the session?
Just go ahead, buddy. All the best. Bye. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Okay, so yesterday we have seen few topics, right? Sequence, flowchart, and everything. So just wanted to know if anybody got chance to see those video and try to practice from your side, or any questions from yesterday's topic. If no, then I'll start the new topics today, which is called what is variable, what is argument, and some use cases regarding those two concepts. Okay, so I'll take the silence as no, and then we'll start today's topic, which is day 3 on September. Okay, and some of the commonly asked questions again in the interviews will again come regarding this topic called variables arguments, and also any kind of project, a simple project or medium project or a complex project. Definitely you need to understand this concept called argument. Without understanding argument, even if you go further and help you understand anything also, it would be very difficult for you to understand what I'm trying to say. So that is the reason I'm not going with any use case at one go. Like slowly I'm helping you understand a topic and what are the things you need to remember the topic. Then any of you will do a project regarding any use case, and then at that moment you would basically bring all your knowledge and implement them in that project. Ultimate goal all of us should have is, for example, let's take an example. We have this HR onboarding form. At least in the next after a week or after a few days, our ultimate goal should be entering the first name, last name, date of birth, designation, mobile number, a gender, and then click on this checkbox and then click on submit and generate this employee ID and employee name for the new person joining an organization. And also we have few use cases in that web page which Vajrang would have shared you. So we should basically do those use cases so that we will get more and more confidence among us, right? So for that, first of all, we need to understand or get our basics strong, right? So now, as you see, the first time when we are doing something, our variable section is completely blank because we don't have any variable. So let me create a sequence, just a blank sequence. And when I have a sequence, there is no variable for the first step. There is no argument for the first step. And to start with today, I will start with the difference between a variable and then an argument. Anybody knows, first of all, what is a variable, what is an argument? If somebody already knows about this, this is the time you can just give me some keywords. What is this argument? What is a variable? No idea?
No idea.
Okay. So now let's say we'll take an example to add the sum of two numbers. Okay. First of all, we'll do it in one workflow, which is called main workflow. We'll try to add the sum of two numbers. So let's say there is an assign activity. I think we are looking at this assign activity now. So this assign activity will basically use to assign a particular value to a variable. Let's say I wanted to create a variable. Yesterday also I have told you there are two options to create a variable. One is I can go to that variable section and then click on create variable, and then I can say integer, because a number is an integer, int underscore number 1. So whatever I'm saying, it should start with int underscore number 1 str underscore is, according to me, it's a state best practice. But some organizations will do it in some other way, but the ways I've done in different organizations, this is a standard format. So integer, and as it's a variable of integer type, if you should change this string to integer, because by default, when you're creating a variable, by default it will be a string. But if you're dealing with an integer, just change from string to integer, just clicking on this drop down. if I need to update, or sorry, if I need to get the sum of two numbers, I definitely need two numbers. For that, I can create a variable like this, or let me create a variable in another way. Just go to that assign activity. What is that shortcut we have done yesterday to create a variable?
Control-K.
Control-K. And now, like same integer underscore, please go on mute, everybody. Thank you. Now again, like yesterday, again I'll do integer underscore. Now I'll say number 2. Now I wanted to assign a particular number to this variable. Let's say I'm doing it as, let's say 5. Now if I give a number which is of int underscore number 22, even though I gave int underscore number 2, it was throwing me an error, says implicit conversion from integer to string. So what did I do wrong?
It was a string.
It was a string.
Variable
Variable
type.
type is string. So this, if it is string, I can put this 5 in a double quote and then 5 or 6. This is gonna accept. If it is an integer, you cannot. Gita, please go on mute. Gita, can you please go on mute? Thank you. So the second number, which is int underscore number 2, this is of type integer. If it is an integer, I cannot put a double quotes and then a number. If it is a number, just give a number. Let's say 6. So your number 2 is 6. Now I wanted to put a number 1 as well. Let's say integer, which is already created. So I don't need to create an integer again. Int number 1. Now I wanted to assign it, let's say 8. So my number 1 equal to 8, number 2 equal to 6. And for example, first thing I wanted to display is what is there in integer number. If it is a number, write line will only accept a string. It will not accept an integer. So that is the reason you are seeing this error. So always remember, whenever you are using a write line activity, always convert that to string. Just say dot to string. That's it. When you convert a boolean to string, you should say bool dot to string. This time it is integer. Just say integer dot to string, and then your error is gone. So why do I need to put this write line before I got the number raised? I wanted to show you what is there in integer number before your execution was started. I am putting a breakpoint, which I've done yesterday also. Just did F9. Your pointer is here. Now I'm doing this debugging. So this is a debugging skill you need to definitely have as a developer. So initially, what was, can somebody guess what could be the output if I'm doing step into? Just put it in the chat. I am seeing your chart. If you're seeing your replays as well, can somebody put in the chat what will be the output if I'm running it? Integer number dot to strings. If I want to display what is there in that integer, what could be the output? I'll see it here.
8,6.
8,6. Okay. Anybody else? Gita says 8. Anybody? It's okay. Just give the wrong answer also. It's okay. But I need answer. That's it. Please use that chat facility. Just give some number, whatever number comes to your mind. Please put that answer in the chat. Madhu says 8. Chaitra says 8. Okay, everybody almost saying 8. So let's understand how the execution will happen. Okay, so did we discuss yesterday the default value of integer? It is 0. Now we are assigning the number of this integer equal to 8 after this activity. But we have put the write line before this activity. That means this is not yet executed. The execution has stopped here itself. Okay, now if I'm doing step into, it says 0 because this activity was not yet executed. That is the reason it says that it shows you the default value, which is 0. Now, after you have assigned integer number 1 is equal to 8, now if I do step into, now if I see what is there in integer number 1, now it is 8. So what I am trying to tell you is robot will do the execution one activity at a time. That means execution will start at this activity. This is executed, then this activity, then next activities. Now I'll put the same right line activity. I'll copy it and then I'll come here and then do paste. Now let's see what is happening. By I'm doing this break, like play this button again. Now let's see what is happening. So, okay, so initially the number for integer number, I don't have any number here. So yesterday also we discussed the default value of an integer is 0. For string it is blank, which is double quotes a blank value. For Boolean variable type it is of false. So this activity was not yet executed. So the value for integer number is 0. Now after I assign a value to this integer, now I am doing step into. The value for that is assigned to this variable. Now I am doing step into. The answer is 8 now. So understand one thing, robot will start step by step. Now this is executed. Now we are also assigning int number 2 is equal to 6. So that is also assigned. Finally, there are no more activities. So robot was closed. I mean stop. Okay, so now again, in the certification, if somebody wanted to do UiPath certification in the future, maybe after you are having good experience in using UiPath, and if you want to do a certification, the certification question comes up like this. Int number 1, here it says 15. Okay, the default value of number 1 is 15. The default value of number 2 is 5. And then it asks you whether 15 will be displayed, 0 will be displayed, or 8 will be displayed. Okay, now for that, I'll tell you the answer. So when you have already assigned a value to an integer, which is 15 at this moment, that means there is no point of a default value. There is no point it will give you a value as 0. So now if I'm doing step into, it is giving you 15. Now let's say I don't want 15. Let's say you want 8. That is the reason you have put an assign activity. So now 15 was updated to 8. Now if you see what is their integer number, it gives you 8. Now with integer number, before I execute this activity, what is there in integer number? Let's see. Before I executed this action activity, I have 5 in integer number 2. After I got executed, it will become definitely 6. So the default values is something it will consider if you have not assigned anything, but it will also update that value if you have used assign activity. So in general, assign activity is used to update a value to a variable. That variable can be of any type. It can be of string, of Boolean, or array of string, or object, or whatever. But for an example, I took it as an integer. If you want, I would repeat this topic another time. If not, I'll proceed further. Yes, Geeta.
Vamsi, I have a doubt. Actually, in first right line, we assigned it as a string, right? So
Yeah.
why it is returning as 0?
See, basically, let me take a log message actually. This time telling log level of information. Geeta, I'm seeing a resound. My voice is coming back. Please go on mute after you ask the question. Yeah, thanks. So this log level activity, I don't need to convert this particular variable to string explicitly. I just need to give that integer, that's fine. Log message will take care. But when you are using a right line activity, other than string, for example, if I am creating a variable, let's say str student name, which is of variable type. For str student name, I just need to just say str student name, that's fine. There is no error. But other than string, whatever variable you have, you should definitely convert it to string. And the default value, it will automatically convert to a string, which is of 0. So that integer value, UiPath is converting that to a string, which is again displaying you as 0 in the output. So that toString is converting 0 to a string value, which is of not an integer, it's a string. And again, like I said, in an ideal real-time scenarios, we would never use write line. We would always use log message activity in our right. Clear, Gita?
Got it, Vamsi. Thanks.
Thanks. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. So now again, we'll go back to our first question. What the purpose of this example is, I want to do sum of two numbers. So just to do the sum of two numbers, simple, I need to again take another assign activity. And this particular assign activity, let's change the display name and let's tell the other person or code developer saying, this is adding two numbers. Why I recommend this display name to be updated? Please ignore my spellings. So why I asked my developers to update the activities display name is, you would basically tell the other person, say this is what it's doing, right? Just to tell you, just to give you some example. For example, I am taking another project here. Okay, the project name LinkU. I will tell you the importance of display name as well. Okay, if you see this particular expression, whatever I have written here, open in advanced editor. Let's say Geeta is a developer for this project and she has done a code like this. She has some good experience and then she has done a code like this. As a basic level employee who is starting my UiPath journey just now, I would definitely not understand what is this, what is enumerable, what is this where and everything, right? So that is the reason I would prefer, or I would say, please put a display name. That display name is just, it would basically tell you this particular code is to get the Microsoft employees from that Excel sheet. At least some basic information other than just leave it like assign activity or log message activity. Always try to put a standard display name so that it will help your code developer. That's an intention. Again, let's switch back to our original process. Now, how do you add the sum of two numbers? What is that we should do to add the sum of two numbers? Chart is open for you. Or else if you can tell me, you can tell me. What should I do to add the sum of two numbers? So here I wanted to add the two numbers. What can I do to add the two numbers? In general, how do you add two numbers? Let's say if I'm giving you number 1 is 5, number 2 is 10. What comes to your mind if I'm asking you to do sum of two numbers?
Add plus.
Add plus, simple. So now we have integer number 1, integer number 2. So let me open this editor. I would just simply say integer number 1 plus integer number 2. That's it. You don't need any programming skills to do the sum of two numbers. This is your first variable. This is your second variable, and then you're done. So after you do this sum of these two numbers, which you have put the plus symbol, obviously you should add the result to some other third variable, right? For that, again, I will create another variable, control K. I say int underscore result. When there are two integers, obviously the result also will be an integer. So this is throwing you an error because your variable type of result is string. I should change this to an integer. If I do this, then the number of the sum of two numbers is updated to result. Now I can display this here to log message, and then the information, and then here I can say int result. I don't want to debug this. I just go to here and say run file. So simple. That is how you use the assign activity. Assign activity is generally used to update the variable values or do any kind of operation. One of the operation I showed you is a sum. Like that, you can do anything. Now, like the sum of two numbers, you have done it. Output is 14. like 6 plus 18. This the right line is gave you as 8, but the 14 is a log message output, which is 6 plus 8. Okay, so in general, this is how you basically get used to this variables concept. Other than this sum, you will do a lot of other functionalities as well using that variables, but in general, this is how you do the sum of two numbers. Now let me introduce this concept called arguments. Okay, to introduce arguments, I would definitely need another workflow. Workflow means I should click on this new option and say sequence. Now in the new sequence, I just want this sequence to add the sum of two numbers. I just want to add the sum of two numbers in this sequence, but the display of the two numbers should be displayed in the main workflow only. I'm again telling you the requirement. Sum of two numbers has to be done in this sequence. So I'll say sum of two numbers. Sum of two numbers. So by looking at this name of this workflow, it clearly says that this workflow is basically created to do the sum of two numbers. Okay, now if I need to do sum of two numbers here, again, if I need to create the variables and everything, it would be not a good option, right? So for that, what I'm doing is I'm creating an argument. Let me tell you how you use this arguments concept in UiPath. This is the only topic which is bit complex. So please understand this carefully, and this is very important. Rest are everything drag and drop, drag and drop. This is only bit complex. Understanding the variables and arguments is bit complex. Please concentrate. I'll go to arguments. First time I'll go to arguments. Arguments means just see this workflow as, let's say, if somebody is transferring amount from their account to my account. So is that amount coming to my account or is it going to outside account? It's coming to my account, right? So if you want something to your bank account or to your house or to yourself, the direction of that should be in direction. If you need something from somebody, then the direction should be in direction. So to get the sum of two numbers, I need two numbers, which is the first one is integer. So in direction and int number 1. And the argument type should be integer. Next thing, I need another number. For that, again, I will say int underscore number 2. For that, again, direction should be my side because somebody should pass that number to me. Just two things we are learning. Now, let me delete all these unwanted right lines from here. So I'm saying delete, assign, delete, delete, delete. I'm deleting all of these things, whatever we have done so far. Now, let me introduce this new concept called invoke workflow activity. Let's list down what all we have seen so far. We have seen what is assign activity. We have seen arguments. We started with in direction, and we will learn what is out direction as well. And we will learn what is invoke workflow activity. Let's go back to our project. Now, in the if you click on project, you will see this all the workflows, whatever you have created so far. So if I need to use this workflow in the main workflow, what you need to do is just drag that workflow and then drop it to the center. Okay, I'm repeating this one more time. Just drag that workflow and then drop it to the center. If you do that, the concept, whatever I'm saying is using another workflow in the current workflow. What is that another workflow? Sum of two numbers is this workflow. I've done it for somebody. Now I am using it in my current workflow. In an ideal scenario, how this scenario will happen is, let's say me, Kalyan, Navin, these three people are of same company and same team. Now I've said Kalyan, please work on login workflow. I was Navin to do retrieving of data workflow. I am the project owner. I would basically do the integration work and testing work. So I would say, Navin, you do something. So he will do a workflow like this, and then he will give me this work. And some other person, he will do another workflow, and then he say, yes, I'm done with my workflow. The main job of a project lead or project admin who is gonna taking care of this project is integrate those work, whatever your core developers have done. So like this, let's say I asked, for example, Kalyan to do the sum of two numbers. He said he has done something. After he shared me the sum of two numbers, I should drag and drop this sum of two numbers like this. Okay, now what is Kalyan expecting from me to give? Because if you see this orange color error or warning message, if you see this warning message, that means let's say sum of two numbers was developed by Kalyan, for example. Then if he's expecting me to give something, I should give him for this workflow. Where will he expect that expectation? He'll put it in the argument. So what is he expecting? He's expecting me to give number one and then number two. So I'm not assigning that number one, number two in this workflow where assign number one equal to 2 or number one two equal to 5, not like that. Kalyan is developing me this workflow sum of two numbers, and when I'm invoking it, I click on import arguments, and then I'll get to know what is that Kalyan is expecting for me when I'm using his workflow, whatever he has developed. So he's expecting me to give these two numbers, which is number one and number two. So for me to use his workflow, whatever he has created, I should pass this value. Let's say number one is 5,000 and number two is 10,000. So only if I give these two numbers, whatever, this is of string, let me update this argument, which is of string to an integer. So you should make sure that both of these arguments should be correctly updated, and these two arguments should be required for this workflow to be developed. So once he has done this, I should again click on this import arguments, and then he is expecting me to give an integer. So I would say integer is 10,000. Okay, so whatever Kalyan asked me for his workflow, I have already given him the numbers, which is 5,000 and 10,000. So far, so good. So now I am not seeing any errors. So everything will happen in this workflow. So now let's say Kalyan wanted to know what numbers did I give. Let's say I am the person who is invoking this workflow. Let's say same workflow. Let's say if somebody is invoking, he would give 5,000 or 10,000. It depends on other person. If Kalyan wanted to see what did I give, he can just simply say log message to see what is that I give, and say integer number one, and another log message, this time integer number two. So far clear everybody, or do you want me to repeat this one more time? I can repeat for any number of times, but this is very important.
So far, good.
Everybody? Yes, Vidya?
Yes.
Good.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So what I'll do, I'll go to main XAML, and like we have already doing it, I'll put a breakpoint here. I'm putting this breakpoint to help you understand how the execution will go slowly, step by step, because robot in a real-time scenario, it will run very fast. If I show you that in that way, you will not understand how actually it will work. So that is the reason I'm putting a breakpoint like this, and then I'm clicking on this play button. So what did I do? Kalyan has developed me some workflow, which is sum of two numbers. So I use that workflow in my main XAML. So Kalyan asked me to pass two numbers, which is number one and then number two. So I gave him those two numbers, whatever he asked me, which is 5,000 and 10,000. Now these two values, we can basically display it in another workflow. Now Kalyan is checking what numbers did I give. It says 5,000 for number one, 10,000 for number two. That is how you basically pass the values from one workflow to another workflow. The main purpose of argument is again the same example. If you need to pass the value from one workflow to another workflow, then you definitely need arguments. And yesterday also I showed you, for example, you have this, let's say student name as a variable. Let me see if I can access student name in another workflow. Information, and here I'm saying student name. STR student. I can't even see STR student name because that STR student name is limited within this work. You cannot pass that STR student name, whatever variable you have created in this workflow, to another workflow. If you need to pass that student name, then somebody has to create it as a variable. Then only you can pass that student name, or else you cannot do that. So ultimate purpose of argument is to pass the value from one workflow to another workflow. Then you need to use the argument. Is that clear so far? I will again run one more time just to let you get that confidence. What did we do so far? So I clicked on the play button. I used, so this is something asking me for two values. I did step into, then it is getting me the value, which is 5,000 for number one, 10,000 for number two, and then sum of two numbers was executed. Now again execution comes to main XAML, and then execution was ended. But did Kalyan serve his purpose? No, because I asked Kalyan to do the sum of two numbers, but he just did logging of number one, logging of number two. If you need to update this workflow, this workflow should basically do sum of two numbers and pass this sum of two numbers to me. If I'm asking, can you please get me sum of 5,000 and 10,000, then this workflow, whatever is created, he should give me that output. But so far he has not created me any output, right? Everything is in indirection. Everything this workflow is taking as an input, but nothing has got it as an output for me. If I need output, what do I need to do is I need to create an argument here saying out underscore int underscore result. Now this particular argument, we will pass it to this main XAML that I will show you in a couple of minutes. So now, first of all, if I pass this out argument now only, what happens? Okay, I just created this and then the direction is out direction. Now the moment I create this out argument, if I go to main, automatically this will show you this warning message. That means it is asking me to save the value, whatever result which Kalyan workflow, whatever you would have developed, that workflow should give me a value. Now I should save that value. To save that value, whatever I have already created here, which is int result, I will use that int result here. INT and then result. After this session, after we complete this, I want everybody to do the same steps, whatever I did in your lab, in your uipath studio. Because I am an experienced person, I will do it very easily, but same thing for you to replicate, it will take some time. Okay, so output, whatever output is generating, I have put it in this int result. Now I want to display the output. So I would say sum of two numbers is, what is that sum of two numbers is, plus int result. So this is an integer, I would say string. So whatever output I have got it from this workflow, I should show it as an output. Now let me do one more time by debugging and see what is that happening. Step into, and then first number one, number two, and then he has not even put that logic to add the two numbers, and then it went to log message. So as of now, log message says 0 because there was no addition happened in that sum of two numbers. So that is the reason it gave you as 0. So if you need to add the two numbers in that logic, then only it will work as expected. And you already know the logic to add the two numbers. Just take that assign activity and to add the two numbers in number one plus in number two. Now you need to add these two numbers and put it in that out direction argument. That's it. Now if I run this, instead of debugging, I just say run file. And ultimately this will give you the sum of two numbers, which is 5,000 plus 10,000 is 15,000. And then finally you got the sum of two numbers is 15,000. And what did we do differently with the first approach? The moment we started today's session, We did the sum of two numbers in the same workflow, which is because I have dealt with only variables. The second example, I have asked somebody to do this logic for me. This workflow is basically adding the sum of two numbers, but the sum of those two numbers logic only was there in this workflow, but the result was displayed in the main XAML. The numbers were also passed by the main XAML. The main XAML means whatever the current XAML. I gave 5,000 and 10,000. Somebody else gave me this logic, and then again I displayed the output within this workflow. So this concept is called invoking another workflow in the UI. And this is very commonly done process in any project. And in some processes, you will see at least 15 to 20 XAMLs. Like I don't know if you see 1, 2, there are 2 XAMLs, at least 15 to 20 XAMLs you will be creating in a project. And you will basically invoke those workflows according to your requirement wherever it's needed. To invoke that, you definitely need to clearly understand what is this arguments, what is in direction, what is out direction, and error. And wait for 15 seconds and see if anybody has any question. I'll take this silence as no and hoping everybody understood it. The last topic which you need to understand is the scope of the variable. So here you see scope of the variable. Now we will understand what is the scope of the variable. Okay. So now let me create a new sequence and let's name it as scope of variable. So what is scope of variable? We will understand. Now I will take an assign activity. And here I'm saying Control K. Let's say str customer name. Let me assign it. Let's say Gita. I'm having this customer string, which is customer name equal to Gita. Now let me take another sequence. Now this inside this sequence, let me see if I'm able to see customer name. Like I said, every variable is accessible within that workflow. I already have this variable. You can clearly see str customer name. That means variable is already added. But now if you see str customer name, when I'm trying to use that str customer name, it was not coming up. So what was the reason behind that? Why I'm not able to access this str customer name, which I'm able to access in this assign activity, which is near this sequence, but just below that, I'm not able to access this str customer name. For that, the reason is, if you go to variables, by clicking on that assign activity, go to that variable and see there is a scope. And it says scope is limited to this assign only. It says scope of a variable. That means this one. Let me change this variable name. Limited to 1. See, if this particular variable, whatever we have created now, it is limited only to this level. If I am using this customer name as variable name, I'm not able to access it. Let's say if I want my variable, whatever I've created, to be accessible across that workflow at any point, anywhere, if I want that particular variable to be accessible, then I need to change it to sequence, which is like parent level, the I level scope. Once I set scope as sequence, then I can go to this assign activity and say str customer name. Now I'm able to update this to new person. I've said Chaitra. That means the scope first time it was limited only to this limited one sequence. If you need that variable name or variable to be used across the workflow, then you should definitely change the scope to that parent level so that you will be able to get it done. So whenever you are practicing this also, you will see when I am sharing the content, when you follow this video, everything looks good for me, but for you, you cannot see that variable. The reason for that could be this thing. you should go to that variable and update the scope. Simple. Okay. Any other questions or queries, issues? Chitra, can you please repeat what did we see so far? The differences between variable arguments. Can you quickly speak for 1 or 2 minutes? I mean, hello? Able to hear me?
Yes.
If somebody can quickly confirm what did we do so far or learn so far, then I'll proceed further. What happened? Are you not understanding what I'm saying, or is there any problem? You all go always on mute. See, we are doing online session. It would be difficult for me to understand what you're listening.
No, Vamsi, we are having a good knowledge about variables and arguments today. So you spoke about variables and arguments. In variables, there are a lot of object handler in that. And then we introduced to assign activity. It is usually for updating the value for a variable. And then for after that, we for arguments, it is like a passing the values from one scope to one flow to another flow. And there are there are two types. One is in and out. So we are using those things for invoke workflow activity. When we are dragging one workflow into current workflow within the project. And then finally we saw the scope of the variable. So we can decide whether it should be in a particular scope or it should be global handler.
Okay, thank you. And one more thing, there are variable direction, argument direction, not only in out, there is also in out. So in out is the combination that argument you can consider it as an input to it or an output to that we will deal with in the later on stage. But just understand that's not only limited to in and out, there is also called in and out. Okay, and the next steps
Sure,
what we'll do is I just opened this Flipkart application. Let me tell you why did I open that. tomorrow's session is something what I'll be telling you now, what we'll be doing. Okay. I was able to log into this website. So logging to this application and everything, we will do it separately. So tomorrow's session is, let's say if somebody need to manually do this task, how much time it will take, and using robot of fast schedule, tomorrow is something we will learn something with the website or the application. So Flipkart or Amazon is something everybody knows. So I'm choosing this application. So our task is, let's say I am typing iPhone and then I do enter. So you see there are 384 iPhone records in Flipkart at this moment. And each and every page, there are 24 iPhone model name, their price, and their description, their specifications. Right? So each page consists of 24 details, and there are total 16 pages. So let's say if I'm asking somebody to get the model name and the price of each and every Apple model here, whatever you're seeing in Flipkart, how much time should we do you generally take to do it manually? To generally do this step, whatever I told you, to get the this one, to get the price, second price, and for 384 records, how much time in general you take to get this done?
30
Please,
minutes.
30 minutes. And anybody else? Anybody else?
1 hour.
Maybe 1 hour.
Vidya says 1 hour, Navin says 1 hour. Kalyan?
Above 1 hour.
Okay, so generally above 30 minutes to 1 hour, we generally take to get this thing copy pasted and then put it in that. Let's say I wanted to get this everything in the Excel sheet. So let's say 30 minutes to 1 hour on an average. So using UiPath, we would take just 15 seconds to 20 seconds, not more than 30 seconds for sure, to retrieve 384 records from the Flipkart and then store it in an Excel sheet. So that is something we will learn tomorrow. That topic is called data scrapping. So that topic, you can see this feature here in the UiPath, which is called data scrapping. Scrapping means retrieving the data, let it be a website or a PDF or a Windows application or wherever. Scrapping is retrieving the data. Now our example is to get the list of 384 iPhone model names and iPhone price if needed any other specification of that, and then put it in the Excel sheet. So for that, I'm saying it will take 30 seconds at most, put it in Excel. So that we will do it tomorrow. If no other questions for anybody, I think we can close the call for today.
Done.
If nothing, thanks for joining. Have a nice day. You can drop off the call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And if any questions, you can ask. Thanks, Kalyan.
Thanks, Vamshi.
Thanks for doing it.
Thank you, MC.
Madhu, do you have any question?